"Sir, I need to ask you something." She said it quietly, like she was afraid the wrong person might hear. "Is the woman you came in with the one in the blue coat, is she your wife?" I had just set my coffee down on the lobby counter. My wife had excused herself to the restroom 2 minutes earlier. I turned to look at the concierge, mid-50s, silver hair pulled tight, the kind of woman who had seen everything this hotel had to offer and none of it surprised her anymore. Except right now, she looked uncomfortable. The way people look when they know something they wish they didn't. I said yes. She glanced once over her shoulder, then back at me. "Can you come with me for a moment? There's something you should see. My name is Mason, and I used to believe that a quiet life was a safe life. That if you worked hard, came home on time, and loved your family without conditions, the world would return that to you in kind. I was 32 years old, an architect with a firm I had spent 6 years building from a 2-person operation into something real. I had a son who was 7 and already obsessed with building things out of whatever he could find in the garage. And I had a wife I had met in college, married at 26, and spent the last 9 years growing a life with, brick by careful brick. I followed the concierge through a door marked staff only and into a narrow hallway that smelled like industrial cleaner and old carpet. She stopped at a small security office, barely bigger than a closet, and pointed to a monitor on the desk. Grainy footage. Timestamp in the corner 47 minutes ago. My wife. Standing at the front desk. Checking in. Next to a man I had never seen before. Not a colleague. Not a cousin. I know the difference between how a woman stands next to someone she works with and how she stands next to someone she has chosen in secret. The body doesn't lie the way the mouth can. She was leaning slightly into him, his hand at the small of her back like it belonged there. She was smiling at something he said, and it was the smile she used to give me, the one that reached her eyes before life got heavy. The concierge said she recognized her from a charity event the hotel had hosted 3 months ago, when my wife had come with a work group. She said she almost didn't say anything, almost walked away and let it be someone else's problem. I thanked her. I meant it. I walked back out through the lobby, picked up my coffee, and when my wife returned from the restroom with fresh lipstick and a relaxed expression, I smiled and told her I was ready to go. She took my arm. I held the door open for her. We drove home talking about our son's soccer game that weekend. I didn't say a word. But something inside me had already gone completely still. That night, after our son was asleep and my wife was in the shower, I sat at the kitchen table and tried to be honest with myself. The man on that footage, I didn't know his name yet, but I knew what he meant. This wasn't a mistake that happened once and was spiraling into guilt. This was comfortable. The way she stood next to him, the easy logistics of checking into a hotel on a Tuesday afternoon, this had a rhythm to it. This had been going on long enough to feel normal. And then I thought about the last year and a half, and everything I had filed away without meaning to. The new password on her phone. The gym she joined but never seemed tired from. The work dinners that ran late on nights I knew her office closed early on Thursdays. The slight distance that had grown between us that I had attributed to stress, to parenthood, to the natural compression of a long marriage. I had been generous with my explanations. I had handed her the benefit of every doubt I owned. I sat with all of that for a long time. Then I called my brother. Older than me, by 4 years, a forensic accountant who had spent a decade doing financial investigations for litigation firms. The kind of man who finds the thing people try hardest to hide. When I told him what I saw, he didn't say he was sorry. He said, "Don't touch anything. Don't confront her. Don't change your behavior at all. Give me 48 hours. He was done in 36. What he sent me was thorough and methodical and devastating in the way that only facts can be. Her phone records showed consistent contact with a number registered to a marketing consultant named Derek. The call started 14 months ago, short at first, then longer, then daily. She had created a secondary email address not difficult to find if you know where to look, and the thread between them went back 16 months. Starting as professional, shifting within 6 weeks into something else entirely. The hotel receipt came next. Not just Tuesday. 4 other visits over the past year, each one on a day she had told me something different. A conference in the city, a girls' weekend with her friend from college, a work retreat. The charges all ran through a credit card I hadn't known about, a card opened in her name only, funded by small transfers from our joint account over the course of a year. 200 here, 150 there. Amounts small enough to disappear in the noise of our monthly spending. I stared at my brother's message for a long time. Then I read it again from the beginning. There is something that happens when betrayal moves from possibility to proof. The part of you that was still hoping gets very quiet, and what's left behind is a kind of cold, awful clarity. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying. I was just sitting in my car in the parking garage of my office building, reading the same document twice, and feeling something close to relief, the relief of knowing that the discomfort I had been feeling for over a year was not in my head, that I was not broken, that I was right. I didn't go home that afternoon. I drove to see a family law attorney that my brother had already contacted on my behalf. She was sharp, direct, and had clearly seen every version of this situation. She walked me through my options with the calm efficiency of someone who does not let sentiment slow down strategy. We talked for 2 hours. I left with a folder and a clear picture of what the next several weeks needed to look like. I want to be careful here about something, because I've thought about it a lot since. I don't think my wife is a villain. I think she is someone who made a choice, and then made it again, and then kept making it until it became a life running parallel to the one we shared. But I have spent enough quiet hours in the 14 months since to understand that a marriage can develop fractures so slowly that neither person notices until one of them has already found a way to leave without leaving. We had stopped choosing each other in the small, daily ways that matter. I had poured myself into work, into the firm, into providing. She had poured herself into everything except the space between us. Neither of us had been honest about how far apart we had drifted. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it helped me understand it, and understanding it kept me from becoming someone I didn't want to be. For the next 3 weeks, I was a very good actor. I came home at the same time. I made dinner twice a week the way I always had. I helped our son with his homework, watched television next to my wife on the couch, and said goodnight with the same routine we had kept for years. Inside, I was building something. A record of every inconsistency, every unexplained evening, every small lie I now had the framework to recognize. My brother continued tracking the financial trail. My attorney filed preliminary paperwork quietly, establishing a legal record without triggering anything yet. The thing about having been a military school kid and later working in a field that runs on precision and deadlines is that you learn to separate emotion from process. The emotion was there. It came in waves, usually at 3 in the morning, usually about our son, about what this would mean for him, about the family dinners we would stop having, about who would be there for his games, his school plays, the unremarkable Tuesday nights that are actually the whole of a life. That grief was real, and I let myself feel it in private. But I didn't let it touch the process. My attorney identified a specific issue that changed the shape of everything. The credit card my wife had been using, the one funded through quiet transfers from our joint account, had also been used 4 times for expenses that appeared to be related to Derek's business. 2 restaurant dinners that matched dates of client meetings listed on his public LinkedIn. A hotel booking in his name, paid with her card. A plane ticket. These weren't just romantic expenses, they were financial entanglement, and in the context of our marital assets, they had legal implications she had not considered. My brother called me the morning he found it. He said it the way he says everything, flat, factual, no drama. She's been partially funding his business operation. Not intentionally maybe, but the paper trail doesn't care about intent. I asked him how much over the course of the relationship. He told me. I sat with that number for a while. Then I told him to document everything and send it to my attorney. 3 days later, I was ready. I had thought carefully about how to do this. Not the confrontation. I wasn't interested in a confrontation for its own sake. But there were 2 conversations that needed to happen, and I wanted control over when and where and in what order. The first was with my wife. The second was with her employer, and I'll explain why. My wife worked as a project manager for a mid-sized commercial real estate company. She was good at her job, genuinely good, and I want to be clear that exposing her professionally was not something I decided lightly. But Derek was not a stranger to her company. He was a marketing consultant they had contracted twice in the past 2 years, which meant the relationship she had developed with him existed within a professional context that her company had an interest in knowing about, and the financial transfers, some of which touched project-related expenses, crossed a line that went beyond personal choices. I am not a vindictive person, but I believe in accountability, and I believe that accountability applies equally regardless of how much I once loved someone. I asked my wife to meet me for lunch at a restaurant downtown. A place we had been to a dozen times, familiar and neutral. She came in bright and easy the way she had been for the past few months, lighter somehow, in the way that people are when they have a secret life absorbing all their tension. She hugged me, ordered her usual. I waited until after the food came. Then I slid the folder across the table. She looked at it without touching it. Something passed across her face, not guilt yet, just the recognition that something had shifted in the air. "What is this?" she asked. "Open it," I said. She did. Slowly at first, then her hands went still. The hotel receipts. The phone records summary. The credit card statements. The financial documentation my brother had compiled. She turned pages without looking up for a long time. When she finally raised her eyes, they were already wet. "Mason." I'm not here for an explanation, I said. I meant it without cruelty. I'm here to tell you that I've already filed. The accounts are frozen. My attorney has everything. And I need you to know that this conversation is being documented. She flinched at that last part. You're recording this? No. My attorney knows I'm here. That's documentation enough. She looked down at the folder again. Her jaw was tight. For a moment, I thought she was going to try to minimize it to find some angle, some partial truth that reframed the picture. I've heard that's what people do when they're caught. They look for the one detail that isn't quite right and pull on it. But she didn't. Maybe because the file was thorough. Maybe because she was tired of the weight of it. How long have you known? She asked. Long enough to do this right. She pressed her hands flat on the table. The money I never meant for it to. I know what you meant and what actually happened aren't the same thing. My attorney is very clear on what the paper trail shows. There was a long silence. Outside the restaurant window, the lunch crowd moved past on the sidewalk in both directions, completely indifferent. What about our son? She said finally. Her voice broke on it. That was the only moment I came close to losing my composure. Because whatever had collapsed between the two of us, that question deserved a real answer. He's going to be fine, I said. I'm going to make sure of that. My attorney has outlined a co-parenting arrangement. You'll have full access. Nothing I'm doing here is about punishing you through him. You need to understand that. She nodded. She was crying now, not loudly, not dramatically, just steadily, like something had finally released. Why? I asked. I hadn't planned to ask it. But it was there, and I let it out. Not about him specifically. Just why? What was happening that you couldn't tell me? She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something I have turned over many times since. She said, I didn't feel like I existed in our life anymore. I felt like a function. A scheduler, a mother, a co-signer. And I know that's not your fault. I know you were building something for us. But I disappeared into it and I didn't know how to say that. So I found somewhere else to exist for a while. It wasn't an excuse. She didn't frame it as one. It was just the truth, finally, without the architecture of deception around it. And the strange thing is it helped. Not immediately, but later, when I was alone with it, it gave the thing a shape I could actually hold, instead of the shapeless wrongness I'd been carrying for months. I told her our son had soccer practice on Saturday and I would be taking him. I told her she should call the attorney my firm had referred her to. Then I stood up, left enough cash on the table for both our lunches and walked out. I drove to my brother's apartment and sat in his kitchen while he made coffee and didn't say much. He had a way of filling silence with competence, just being present without requiring me to perform anything. I had called him from the parking lot the night I first saw the hotel footage. He had driven 40 minutes to sit with me then too. I didn't tell him that mattered. He knew. How did she take it? He asked. Better than I expected, I said. Worse than I hoped. He set the coffee down. What does that mean? It means she's not a bad person. It means our marriage was already gone, and neither of us did the work to save it. It means I'm sad about the right things now instead of the wrong ones. He looked at me for a moment. You sound like you're going to be okay. I think I am, I said. And for the first time since the hotel lobby, I believed it. The meeting with her employer was handled through my attorney, not directly. We submitted a formal communication to their legal and HR departments, outlining the financial entanglement between my wife and their contracted consultant, with the supporting documentation. We did not characterize it as anything beyond what the records showed. We did not editorialize. Their response was prompt. Derek's contract was not renewed. An internal review was initiated regarding the expenses that had intersected with company business. I am aware that some people would say I went too far. I've heard the argument. The counter-argument is simple. What happened was not contained to our private life. It involved shared money, a professional relationship, and a third party who operated inside institutional trust to conduct something he was concealing from everyone. I didn't create those facts. I just stopped helping them stay hidden. My wife was placed on administrative review for a period. She was not terminated. I want to be specific about that because the outcome matters. I did not set out to destroy her professionally. I set out to be accurate, and accuracy had consequences I did not control. She called me the night the review was announced. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message that was 3 minutes long and moved through several emotional registers: frustration, then hurt, then something quieter. At the end, she said, I know I don't have the right to ask you for anything. But please tell our son that I love him. I called him into the room and held the phone up so he could hear that part. He asked if Mom was crying. I said she missed him. He said he wanted to call her. I dialed her back and handed him the phone and stepped out of the room. That was the right thing to do. I'm certain of it. The legal process took 7 months. My attorney was efficient and my wife cooperated more than I expected, perhaps because the documentation left little room for an alternate narrative, or perhaps because she was genuinely trying to do the exit with some dignity. The co-parenting arrangement landed close to what we both wanted. Our son would spend the week with me during the school year and split weekends. Summers would rotate. She would have every holiday, alternating. He would have both of us. And neither of us would make him feel the weight of what had happened between us. I am careful about that. Deliberately, consciously careful. He does not know the details. He knows that his parents love him and that our family changed shape, and that changed shapes are not broken shapes. He is 8 now. He builds things out of popsicle sticks and printer paper, and last week showed me a bridge he'd designed that actually held the weight of his backpack. I stood there, looking at it for longer than I needed to. There was one final thing. About 2 months after the process concluded, Derek reached out. Not to me, to my brother. A mutual LinkedIn connection, a short message asking if I would be open to a conversation. My brother showed it to me without comment. I thought about it for 3 days. Then I told my brother to tell him no. Not because I was angry. I was past angry. But because there was nothing that man could say to me that would add to what I already understood, and I had no interest in giving him a version of closure he hadn't earned. Some doors you don't close with a conversation. You close them by simply never opening them again. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was at my son's soccer game standing on the sideline with a thermos of bad coffee when a woman I vaguely recognized from the parent group asked how I was doing. I told her honestly that I was doing better than I had expected. She said she had heard something had happened and asked if I wanted to talk sometime. I said maybe. I meant it. I still live in the same house. I kept it partly for stability, for our son, and partly because I had built the addition on the east side myself 3 summers ago, framing it out over 2 weeks with my brother's help, and I was not ready to leave something I had built with my hands. My wife lives 20 minutes away. We exchange texts about school schedules and pediatric appointments and which parent is handling the class project supplies. We are polite. Sometimes more than polite. I don't wish her harm. I don't wish her happiness with an asterisk. I just wish her a life she can actually live honestly, because the other version is exhausting for everyone. I learned something in the stretch of months between the hotel lobby and where I stand now. I learned that the opposite of betrayal is not just loyalty. It's honesty, the daily, uncomfortable, unglamorous practice of saying the true thing instead of the convenient thing. My marriage ran out of that long before it ran out of love. Both of us let it. That's the part I carry my share of. But here is what I also know. The morning after the divorce was finalized, I woke up at 6:15 the way I always do, made coffee, and watched the light come in through the kitchen window for about 5 minutes. My son was still asleep. The house was quiet in the way houses are when the people in them are at peace. And I thought not happily, not sadly, just clearly that I had gotten through the hardest year of my life without becoming someone I didn't recognize. That I had protected my kid. That I had told the truth even when it cost me something. That's enough. That's actually more than enough. Build on it. That's what you do with what's left. You don't rebuild the old structure. You clear the site and you start from the foundation. And this time you know which materials hold weight and which ones only look like they would. I'm still learning, but I've got a good foundation. And I know how to build.